Now, a torch of commemoration will travel from the UK to Normandy to mark the 80th anniversary of D-Day next month.
And breakfast, Tim Muffet is at Horse Guards Parade in central London for us this morning, where the beacon will begin its journey. And we can join him now. Morning, Tim.
Yes, good morning to you. Not long now until those 80th anniversary D-Day commemorations take place on June the 6th. But today, as you say, a very poignant ceremony will be taking place. The Commonwealth War Graves Commission ceremonial torch will be lit and will be passed from a D-Day veteran to younger serving officers to volunteers to represent the passing of the messages and the lessons from D-Day through the generations. And as you say, that torch will be making its way firstly across the UK and then across the Channel to Normandy in time for those commemorations. Let's have a quick chat to Captain Alistair Moody from the Royal Navy. You've got a real special connection, haven't you, with D-Day? Tell us about your grandfather.
Certainly. My grandfather, Charles Edward Moody, landed on Juno Beach in the second wave behind the Canadians. He was worked for the Great Western Railway as an accountant before the war, and he, although he was slightly older, you know, in his early 30s, slightly older than the normal recruits, I guess, he, with a young family, he joined up initially in the Royal Artillery and then later in the Royal Engineers, and landed on Juno Beach as part of a stevedores company. So he went there to essentially to organise the unloading of all the ships, but he went there in the second wave behind the Canadians onto Juno.
So for this ceremony to take place today and to be here to witness it, how special will that be for you and how important is it?
I think it's really important. My grandfather was a perfectly ordinary family man, but he and thousands of others saw some truly extraordinary things and did some truly extraordinary things on those days. And I think, you know, as a father myself, I'd like my daughter to understand that for all we love peace, there is a need sometimes to stand up and fight for your freedom and what you believe in, and my grandfather and all of his generation exemplify that in my mind.
And you met your grandfather, didn't you? So what did he tell you about that time?
I mean, it's a bit of a cliche, but to be honest, he didn't really say anything. I knew more about my grandmother's experiences in the Blitz than I did in his experiences in D-Day. But that said, he did leave a load of letters, but even my own father didn't know about them until after my grandfather died. So I know more about it now than I did when he was alive.
Extraordinary, isn't it? And in a way typical of that generation. Thanks ever so much indeed, and it'll be so interesting to see that ceremony take place in an hour or so's time. Now, Matthew, you're a civil servant here at the Ministry of Defence. You did serve in the Army and you're a reservist as well. Tell us about your connection to D-Day. So
my great-uncles, Uncle Ernie and Uncle Johnny Dale, were serving on HMS Frobisher off Sword Beach during D-Day, firing on the landings and supporting those.
Now, they died within the last 10 years, didn't they? So what did they tell you about that time?
They, like Alistair's story, they were incredibly open. They spoke about it a lot, the adventure that they had, the kind of experiences they had on board the ship, but also seeing parts of the world. And they were always really keen to keep the story going, to talk about those people that didn't come back and make sure that everyone knew about the sacrifices and what happened at that time. And the symbolism of today's event, a D-Day veteran will be here, passing the torch on to a younger volunteer, a cadet, serving officers as well. How symbolic and how significant is that, do you think, that passing on of that message? I think it's really, really important. They were always really keen to get back. They got back to Normandy for the 70th and then went back on their own outside of organised events almost every year up until they passed away. And they always found it really important to make sure it's passed on and everyone understood exactly what went on. And do you think that the younger people who will be here today a bit later on, what do you think they should be taking away from this event? I think, again, it's what's been spoken before. People who are doing ordinary jobs, ordinary people had to step forward and serve in these extraordinary times and do extraordinary things. Matthew, thanks ever so much indeed. And Alistair, thank you as well. So within the next hour or so, D-Day veterans will be here. They'll be gathering along with younger people as well to begin this ceremony, and the torch will then make its journey around the UK, taking in a number of places. Edinburgh Castle, for example, Imperial War North in Manchester, before travelling across the Channel with D-Day veterans to Normandy in time for the commemorations there on June the 6th.
Now, a torch of commemoration is on its way from the UK to Normandy to mark the 80th anniversary of D-Day in a couple of weeks' time.
And our Tim Muffet is at Horse Guards Parade in central London for us this morning. And just about or less than an hour ago, that special beacon was lit. We did say, didn't we, we were expecting it to be lit around 8 o'clock, and absolutely bang on 8 o'clock, that ceremony started on Horse Guards Parade as that torch will start its relay, its long journey now to Normandy.
The crowds there include a D-Day veteran. The Defence Secretary, Grant Shapps, was telling us a bit earlier about why it was so important for him to be there as well as families who are linked in some way to the events there in Normandy nearly 80 years ago. There are going to be lots of events over the next few days as we approach the anniversary in June. And breakfast, of course, will be fully across those communities here. So many families here still have links, don't they, to that moment in history.
And there is a really lovely moment, isn't there, where one person hands it on to the next person, who hands it on to the next person, and the generations get younger and younger and younger, and it's symbolic of telling the story through the generations and how important it is that that story continues to be told.
And we can hear now from one of the veterans, Peter Kent.
I say, I went ashore 4 days after the landing. I went over with the invasion, and we stopped out with the Mulberry Harbour. And then I say 4 days after I went there, and there was dead Germans, and there was all the young German kids. There was officers there with his helmet on and all mud down his face, going off with the kids, young German kids, dead Germans on the beach. But that was 4 days after the first landing.
80 years on, those memories still so clear, aren't they, of the day?
Yeah, and Tim, as we said, is live in central London for us this morning. Morning, Tim.
Yeah, good morning to you. Within the last hour, it was such a poignant, moving ceremony. We heard from Peter Kent there, who took part in it, and many dignitaries were here, including the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak. A lighting of a ceremonial torch. The Commonwealth War Graves Commission ceremonial torch will then travel across the UK before making its way to Normandy. There is the flame from which it was lit a short while ago. Claire Horton is from the Commonwealth War Graves Commission. What a poignant event it was. What was it like to take part in?
Well, it's been a wonderful morning, hasn't it? The weather was against us, but everyone's spirit was in it, and we were delighted to be able to be here on Horse Guards with the Prime Minister, with the wonderful Peter Kent, passing on that flame of commemoration from the current D-Day generation on to the next generation, passing through cadets serving military of today, and then on to young people who will take that torch of remembrance forward so that we never forget why we're all here today.
So what's the plan now? What will happen to the torch?
Torch has got about 14 different stops now throughout the UK, so we're heading off to Oxford, Cambridge, Newark. It's in the National Memorial up in Scotland, in Edinburgh Castle. It's going to Cardiff, Plymouth, Portsmouth, lots of different places, including the National Arboretum. That's going to be travelling around the country over the next couple of weeks, where you'll be seeing the same sort of ceremony, young people taking that torch, taking on that responsibility to remember, to tell the stories, and then off to Normandy on the 4th of June, off across to Normandy on the boat with all the veterans that are going across, where we'll have a wreath laying at sea, and then the torch will start its journey to Bayeux Cemetery.
Thanks ever so much, Steve. It's going to be an amazing few weeks, isn't it? And what an amazing morning it's been as well. Poignant, thought-provoking, and a really important opportunity for younger generations to reflect on what happened and for that message to be passed down literally from generation to generation. So the torch is about to make its way across the UK and then off to France.
OK, Tim, thank you very much indeed. And we will continue to cover the torch and its journey over the next few weeks as we approach the anniversary of D-Day in June.
And of course, that anniversary will be covered extensively on the BBC throughout that very important day.
When you see veterans like Peter there.
Yes.
You know, it's so important for him to be in London today, but also to go back to Normandy and remember those who are no longer here.
And lovely to see that torch being passed from person to person. Really special moment.